We start with Columbia Pictures celebrating 100 years of making and distributing classic films. And before you can say, well, I'm sure this will be just as good as A Few Good Men, Oliver and Ghostbusters, we open in 1970s Peru, with a pregnant scientist lady getting shot up and betrayed over a super special superpowered spider. As naughty baddie Ezekiel runs off with the arachnid what she was going to totally heal the world with, and just leaving her in the jungle to die. Before some sort of hellish spider cosplaying tribesman kidnaps a poor broad and makes her give birth in a filthy pool with no anaesthetic or antibiotics. And also lets one of them super spiders bite the wannabe white saviour for a bit of karma, coming over here and trying to take it back to the West for a better life like she's Madonna collecting little black orphans or some shit. Anyway, then we cut to Queens in 2003. And we know it's the early noughties because fucking Blockbusters is still around. As medic Cassie Webb almost runs over an innocent black schoolgirl during an emergency, who proceeds to just rudely give her the finger. Whilst Ben Parker then tells her at the hospital to appreciate the little drawing some kid did for her after she saved his mama's life. Whilst the awkward stepdaughter just awkwardly announces that she's the patient's stepdaughter and probably leaves the scene.
Okay.
Later, after randomly dropping into the convo with Ben that she's a foster kid and then passing some girl trying to stop a rando black man barging into her apartment because reasons, she spends the rest of her day talking to her cat in her flat and looking at old pics of her deaded bum in her old research journal. Because I guess this is just what passes for thrilling writing in the superhero genre nowadays. Anyway, after helping a poor sod from a car wreck, she ends up going over a bridge, given no good deed goes unpunished these days, and then having some weird underwater dreams about future events and a bunch of CGI webs and shit. Luckily, Ben slaps her back to consciousness after almost drowning dreaming about CGI webs and future events, and then has a serious case of deja vu when she relives her partner reading her oxygen levels out twice in a row.
Weird.
Elsewhere, that jungle baddie Ezekiel seduces some milfy bird at an opera, and then has a super bad dream where he's smacked up by 3 young tarts in tight spandex and all whilst wearing a terrible wig. And she just can't believe the bloke she just bedded is already having sweaty dreams about 3 other sexy girls right in front of her. Cause she always thought that she was great in the sack, to be fair. Anyway, he tells her that it's actually a vision of his own future death what he gets every night, and desperately wants to stop him doing him in at all costs. The next day, Cassie attends Ben Parker's sister's baby shower, and once again experiences a super jarring sense of deja vu, having to guess the baby's name when it's super obviously going to be Peter, given she's carrying the kid who'll grow up to be the bona fide Spider-Man fella and she. Meanwhile, Ezekiel tasks a random computer expert, who looks more like the type to be getting blottoed in a bar till 3 AM rather than staring at screens for a man what loves to finger spiders, to track down the trio of naughty bitches who keep trying to kill him in his mind every night, using facial recognition tech and every camera feed in the city. After getting a checkup and an all clear from the doc, given she's starting to worry she's going mad and also reliving super awkward moments all the time, she heads to the local train station to clear her noggin, whilst the techie spy girl soon realises that all 3 targets she's been employed to track down are all bizarrely at the same exact train station at the exact same time because reasons. And after getting more precognizant visions warning her of danger, including some bloke who looks suspiciously like the one in her mum's pixel them years ago, now strangling young black girls like he's on some Chris Brown ting, she in turn warns the 3 girls to get the heck out of Dodge already. Mainly because some nutter is now crawling toward them on the ceiling whilst dressed as an arachnid fella in tight spandex. And they just can't believe they've now gone and made a black Spider-Man, even though we already gave them Miles Morales, so ain't that enough already? Anyway, after making a run for it while the black fella's busy defunding the police by totally killing them and removing them from the state payroll one at a time, Cassie steals some poor bloke's cab and properly introduces herself to the 3 randos she's just kind of sort of kidnapped. But turns out they ain't really randos at all. Well, given sweet blonde Julia was the awkward stepdaughter in the hospital earlier, the Latina was a bird trying to stop the chocolate geezer from coming into her gaff, and a black girl rudely flipped her off the other morning after she almost got run over by this bitch. And thus they've all kind of sort of met each other before and stuff. And given the cops are looking for Cassie, now it looks like she totally kidnapped the young girls and stuffed them in a stolen cab, she tells them they can't leave and they have to totally stick together, given that ethnic Spidey fella also wants to kill him because reasons. Later, they hide out in the woods for a bit, and naturally, no one quite believes her when Cassie says she can totally see the future and stuff. And before they can say, well, if you could really see the future, how come you didn't foresee this tanking at the box office and noping out at the fucking auditions already? She leaves them all in the woods to break back into her own apartment and check her mum's old journal for clues, and soon finds out all about a mythical race of spider peeps hanging out in a Peruvian jungle with strange superhuman powers, and just assumes this fella must be one of them, and also worries that she might be linked to these freaks too, given she also has their sixth sense for deja vu and the power of super future seeing, and now also recognises Ezekiel in the pic with her mum as the kinky black bloke what just tried to yeet her in a small train station.
No way!
Meanwhile, the girls bond about all being weirdo loners with parents who don't really give a fuck about them, before heading to a local diner to stuff their faces, which soon leads to some cute boys noticing them, and an old fat guy also noticing them, given they're splashed all over the papers as missing and stuff. So now tipped off as to their whereabouts, Ezekiel heads off after them, whilst Cassie gets another premonition about the naughty spider dude doing some more black on black violence, and luckily arrives just in the nick of time to totally crash a stolen cab in his ass.
Oh, that's gotta hurt!
Naturally, she gives him a right bollocking for irresponsibly dancing on tables in front of boys who could see up their skirts, and also going out of their way to make a spectacle of themselves when they're meant to be laying low. So they just say sorry and hang their heads in shame. And before you can say, you should all be sorry your agents booked you in this mess, because I know I'm sorry for even bloody watching it for free, Ezekiel tries to understand how some random ambulance driver keeps managing to outsmart him by predicting his own behaviour before he even does it or some shit. Before his tech girl says her name is Cassandra Webb, and she's totally the daughter of that prego scientist lady what he shot up years ago over that Ponzi spider thing. Later, they check into a hotel and update poor Cass on how none of them have any parents who love or miss them, and so she's totally stuck with them tonight. And worse, the Latina bird is a fucking illegal immigrant, and so they can't go to the cops about any of this mental shit, or else they risk getting Tom Homan and the boys to ice her ass back to the land of sombreros and shit.
You better start packing now, cause you're going home. You're done! You're done!
Luckily, she tells them all about how she was a loner foster kid, so she can totally relate to being an unlikable loser weirdo with no family or friends. Returning to the smashed up diner to search for clues, despite it being a literal crime scene and presumably being watched or patrolled by cops on the lookout for women of her exact description, she somehow enters some kind of shared vision thing with a Negro Spidey fella, who tells her all about how he wants them squotes dead because they grow up to kill him in the future because reasons. Because apparently, they all develop superpowers in the future also because reasons. So he has to nip this shit in the bud now, or else they'll nip him in the bollocks and chuck him out a bleeding window. Liberties! But she of course says diddly squat and just tells him to stop doing all these bad things already. Because it's starting to look like plain old misogyny, coming after 4 more women after already having yeeted a pregnant bird in Peru 3 decades ago.
Hey, that's fucked up.
Anyway, the next morning, Cassie sets about teaching the girls CPR. Girls, I guess she's read the script and foreseen that some poor fucker's gonna need their chest pumped at some point in the 3rd act, before dumping them on her partner Ben to babysit while she goes off to fucking Peru to retrace her mother's last steps, where she soon meets a member of the Las Aranas tribe and learns all about her mum's tragic backstory, what we already know about from the opening scenes, and also learns how many more powers she actually has after he pushes her out of her own body Doctor Strange style, and makes her and us endure yet another terribly animated flashback sequence, where it turns out her mum was in the jungle trying to get to the rare spider in order to extract its healing venom, given her baby was diagnosed with a terminal illness in the womb, and that's why the tribe made her get bitten by said spider before yanking little Cass out of her dead mum's womb. Or some shit. Anyway, now she realises her mum did love her all along, despite this random subplot implying she never thought she ever did, coming out of fucking nowhere and disappearing just as quick, and now she's finally over her past trauma and baggage, she apparently can learn to use something called the web to be in more than one place at one time, before the movie has the bold brass cheek to utterly butcher Uncle Ben's famous saying.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
And when you take on the responsibility, great power will come.
Wow.
Elsewhere, Ezekiel gets impatient with his one single team member who is contracted to spy for him, given their target has managed to hide 3 teenage girls for an entire week, despite them having access to every single CCTV camera in the city.
No!
Why this super rich guy don't just employ a whole team of hackers and bot farmers to spy on him and monitor social media, I don't know. Anyway, the girls are off chilling at Uncle Ben's gaff, but after his sister Mary selfishly goes into a sudden labour, they all jump into the motor to get her to a Hozzy pronto, which gives the tech girl a much needed lead on their location, whilst a final premonition forces Cassie back into her ambulance to go save her new mates, given they're now being chased and cornered by the baddies. And it looks like it's curtains for the diverse trio of teens, including Sydney Sweeney, who could be single-handedly saving this entire pig with her ample assets, but is instead covered up by the Killjoy producers and thereby truly providing zero reason to watch this flick at all. But suddenly, Cassie drives her bog-standard ambulance through a concrete fucking wall, and once again smashes a motor through his ass, but not in the fun way. And before you can say, well, this is some ludicrous Fast and Furious levels of cartoon physics, she takes the girls off Ben and leads them all over to a random fireworks factory, where she just blows the place up for shits and giggles and heads on up to the roof, what seems to be sponsored by Pepsi Cola for some reason. And using her 6th sense Spidey sense to dodge a bunch of deadly fireworks shooting off all over the gaff, they try to get to a rescue chopper, but just end up getting separated and facing off with a Negro Spidey again. So she just uses the power of the web to somehow project herself into 3 places at once and totally save all 3 girls. Huzzah! Before Ezekiel gets taken out by random steelworks and then anticlimactically falls to his death like in his dream. And just like my diabetic Auntie Debbie, the poor sod's finally finished off by Pepsi.
Damn!
Unfortunately, Cassie also falls into the river and is promptly shot in the face by a firework, because this broad just can't catch a break. And I guess it's pretty lucky that she indeed read ahead and taught the girls CPR in the second act, well given they jump in and save her and then press up and down on her boobies to bring her back to life after this dopey broad almost drowns for a second time in one movie. A little later, we see how Sister Mary has given birth to baby Peter Parker, whilst the girls all tell a now blinded Cassie that they're all totally family and stuck with each other, given one's an awkward stepdaughter, another's a loner weirdo with an attitude problem, and the other's an illegal immigrant with a deported daddo. And we end with Cassie now embracing her powers and destiny, and soon see how these stunning and brave diverse teenage girls will one day be technically criminal vigilantes, taking the law into their own hands and cracking a bunch of skulls in skin-tight super suits.
I like it a lot.
And that's it. That's the movie. Though my favourite part was watching Cassie never being able to open a simple can of soda for some reason, and seeming like it's the first ever time she's ever come into contact with such a thing.
What?
And also when one of the girls asks how the freak Madam Web knew what they got her in a Chinese takeaway. Like, hello, the bird can see the future for fuck's sake, and did you not watch this fucking film, bitch? But personally, I'm just disappointed that the infamous trailer line wasn't anywhere in the final version.
He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died.
Cause that shit's pure Shakespeare, son. But at least this trash had the good grace to end as quickly as possible, I suppose, and not make us sit through a bunch of lame-ass post-credit scenes which will inevitably go friggin' nowhere. Well, now Sony's Marvel movies have somehow tanked worse than Universal's aborted Dark Universe monster films. And maybe I too have the power of super future seeing, well given I was able to predict this entire movie would be total shit just by watching the opening scene. And by golly, I was totally right.
I fucking knew it!
But anyway, that's the plot and that's your lot, considering that bell thing so you don't miss any future recaps. Tell me if you like this flick in the comments if you have time, and I'll research spiders in the Amazon with my mum right before she died with you in the next one.